Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. It's 10 a.m. on Thursday, June 6th, 2019, where I am. I'm in the Philippines right now. We're on the same time as China time. It's 10 a.m. here. And right now it's 10 p.m. in New York. 10 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, June 5th, 2019. Coming to you from my spacious and palatial studios using only the best, highest technology. No, I'm just joking. Getting a new microphone because you probably hear it's a little bit echoing. I'm going to turn off this fan here because I think maybe this fan is making a little bit of noise, humming sound, a little bit of background sound, and it'll get a little bit warm, a little bit warmer in the room because I turned off the air conditioner and I turned off the fan, but that's okay. Anyway, so trying to improve the audio quality, trying to improve the video quality as things come along. Anyway, main point today is about compassion, being compassionate when someone is evil, when someone is bothering us, when someone is doing something bad, when somebody does bad stuff. I had a landlord, and the landlord's stealing money, kind of lying, saying, oh, your electricity was this much, or your water was this much. She's charging 10 times what the water consumption would be, or some people 7 times, some people 15 times, especially foreigners that will come to this town. And I just kind of feel like ripping people off is like an evil thing, and it kind of gets me angry. A lot of people will stand on this principle, right? People will say, I have a friend of mine who's a millionaire, Belgian guy. And when the taxi in Thailand, I met him in Thailand, we hung out in Thailand together. When the taxi would overcharge him, which taxis around the world do that, and especially in Thailand, and especially if you're vulnerable, if you're uninformed, if you don't speak the language, if you're a foreigner, they size you up and they try to get away with whatever they can. So a lot of times if you're at the airport, they'll try to charge you a flat fee of like 500 baht or even 1,000 baht, which is about $3, to go to a hotel in the town, downtown Bangkok, for example, and should only be about $350. So we would travel, we'd go together, we'd go to bars and we'd hang out and go to different places, and he would get really angry and have a fight. Even though he's a millionaire, it's not about that, right? It's about being abused, being taken advantage of, being screwed, being stabbed in the back by somebody. And I've had it happen plenty of times where I felt like I was being stabbed in the back. And one of the people, my own brother, who I felt like stabbed me in the back a lot of times, he said, Matthew, you got to stop worrying about people stabbing you in the back. It's kind of ironic coming from him because I really felt like he was the one that was doing a lot of the stabbing. Do we ask that question? Do we even bother to say, am I being stabbed in the back? Or do we point the finger? Do we accuse? What do we do when we're being love-centered, when our foundation for life is about love, about compassion, about understanding? Is being stabbed in the back an issue? Is it something that we should fight about? Is it a principle that we should stand on? Should we return love when we're being hated, when we're being screwed, when we're being disrespected? It's another thing that really frustrates me. It's a sensitive area for me. If I'm speaking with somebody, they don't even listen, or they're cutting me off, and they just want to say their side of things. And I've had that happen. I've had that happen with the same people that would stab me in the back. People that I would accuse of stabbing me in the back. Do I want to focus on that? Does that make me feel better? Does that make the world a better place? Does it teach them a lesson? I had another friend, a banker from San Francisco. He was born, grew up in Chicago and then San Diego, and now he's in San Francisco doing 401k plans and things like that, and basically involved in the money industry. And he's really sharp and he's really good at that. He does really well. But one of the things that he was involved in was being very vengeful. And he also felt like it was important to get revenge on somebody, even if they didn't do anything deliberately to you, but it just by accident. They didn't mean to do anything wrong. So he would look for revenge. And so this is returning hate for not even hate. This is returning hate, returning revenge, attacking someone for making a mistake. Does this really help? Does this help the world? He thought about teaching a lesson. His idea was, I'm going to teach that guy a lesson. But when something, stabs you in the back, or somebody attacks you, somebody sabotages something you're doing, maybe they want to put a virus on your website, for example, or they want to send you some email that's got a virus in it or something like that as a way to get you back for something. Should we return revenge? Should we punish? Is love about punishment? People talk about justice. Is that justice? What is justice? To me, there is no justice. There's just love. How can you define what's actually just? How do you define justice? Is that everybody gets to make the same amount no matter who's doing what? Everybody makes the same amount of money, everybody gets the same compensation, everyone has the same access to everything, everyone can do everything the same? Is that justice? If someone in their car, drunk driving, kills somebody, should we kill that person? If a person's not even being negligent, but a kid runs out in front of the car to chase a ball because the park is near the road and they hit the kid and kill the kid, should we kill that person? Should we jail that person? Should we penalize that person? Should they pay millions of dollars because they accidentally were in the wrong place at the wrong time driving their car? I mean, somebody runs out in front of your car, in certain situations, it's absolutely impossible to avoid hitting them and killing them, even if you're driving safely, even if you're driving the legal speed, even if you're not driving recklessly or carelessly. These things happen. When somebody makes a mistake like that, involuntary manslaughter or manslaughter, should they be penalized? Should they be hated? Should we return hate? Should we return punishment? Should we return blame for somebody who makes a mistake? Even if the mistake they made was drinking too much. And this person is struggling with alcoholism. When I was a kid, I used to drink and drive. And I was so lucky I didn't hurt anybody, didn't hurt myself, didn't destroy my car. Sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and I'd go down and look at the car and see if I damaged the car or I hit somebody. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. I remember thinking, wow, is there any blood on the bumper, or is there any damage to the car? What a mistake I was making. What a horrible mistake. And I feel really lucky that in that time I didn't hurt anybody. When I did finally get a ticket, I think I was 20. Maybe I was 30, 29. And I was in San Diego, and I had gone to Mexico with my friend drinking all night. We went back to his place. He drove, I guess, back to his place where my car was parked, and we're making noise. 3 a.m. His roommate got all angry and threw me out. And so I had to drive home. I was going to sleep on the floor or on the couch or any place. I would have passed out. But I had to drive home because she didn't want me in the house. And I thought, okay, I'll drive home because I've driven drunk many times. Got pulled over and got thrown in jail for 4 hours, 3 hours for drunk driving. I remember telling the police officers who were actually speeding because they were going down a road. It was so ironic. They were going back to the police station to book me and to give me a blood test and to, throw me in jail for drunk driving. And they were actually speeding because I knew the road they were on. I used to live on that road, and they were going 35 and a 25. So that's kind of ironic. But bottom line is, I was telling the police officers, I was saying, don't let me talk my way out of this. Don't let me get out of this. I deserve this. I was completely wrong. And because I really felt guilty, and I knew that I had been lucky too many times, and my number was up. Not so much getting a ticket, that was no big deal. It ended up costing me, I think, about $800 or $1,000, and putting that on my record, which, because it was the only offense, I think it was taken off the record after 5 years. Long story short, though, the bad part was not so much that I got the ticket, but what I was doing. I was endangering other people. I was endangering myself too. And this was a really bad mistake. And I wasn't really an alcoholic. I was just drinking irresponsibly. And I was behaving irresponsibly. And I was 30 years old. Wow, but it really helped me to learn that lesson. Nobody taught me a lesson. The police were doing their job. The judge did his job. The lawyer that I hired did nothing, but she got a lot of money out of it. But I learned that lesson myself because I thought to myself, wow, this is a ridiculous, stupid thing. When somebody's aware, sometimes I'm aware, I'm not saying I'm always aware, but when I'm aware, I was aware in that situation. I learned from that situation. Sometimes we don't learn. Whether we learn or not, teaching somebody a lesson, punishing somebody, this isn't the way. Beating someone who beat somebody, killing someone who killed somebody, whether it was on purpose or by mistake. This doesn't really give us, this is not really a solution. And if you look at the penal system in America, how incredibly effective that is at raising money. It's a business. Not about helping people. It's not about rehabilitating people. It's not about people learning and people growing and people able to give back when they realize they did something wrong. Walking through the store and you're joking around, you knock over a vase and it falls and it breaks, you gotta pay for that. That's being responsible, that's being accountable, and that's part of love. Love is being responsible and accountable. Love is caring about the effect that you have on others. And if you're drunk driving or whatever it is that you're doing, and you believe in love and you have a love-centered life, a love foundation, you're gonna wanna be responsible. You're gonna wanna be accountable. And it doesn't take a judge, it doesn't take a police officer, it doesn't take a ticket, it doesn't take a penalty for you to realize, hey, this is something that I need to do. I need to take responsibility for my actions. That was a mistake that I made. I was being inconsiderate, I was being disrespectful, I was being careless. I wasn't honoring other people, their lives, their safety. I was doing all of these things that are not loving. Wow, right? It even includes driving in traffic, you know. Do we want to get into some combat thing where we're doing some kind of a, what is that called? Road rage, because somebody did something. Do we want to get them back? Do we want to return hate or evil for what they're doing? Chances are, if you're in Asia, somebody cuts you off. There's absolutely no ill intent whatsoever. It's just the way they drive, especially in China, especially in Thailand. I've been in these places for years and years and driven on the roads, and it's amazing what they do compared to what you might be used to in America, for example. Do we want to return evil for that? Do we want to get angry and hate somebody because they just thought that they wanted to get in, so they just pulled in front? And I use this as an illustration a lot because it's a lesson that I needed to learn. And I would get really aggravated, upset. Now I see people do it, and I'm able to let it go, but it took me years to learn. I was a slow learner. That's one of the reasons why I'm such an advocate of love, because this is what I've been able to figure out after so many years of making so many mistakes and still learning and still making mistakes, but I've got the key, and the key is love. Love is the door to understanding, peace, calmness, a happy life, a joyful life, and a life where you're honoring yourself and others. If we define somebody as just bad, what do we do? What do we do? When we look at this, do we say, okay, this guy's a mass murderer? How about the guy that killed, okay, we can pick any mass murderer, pick whoever you like. Now, this is a person who's doing some really, really, really bad stuff. What do we do to them? Do we cage them like an animal because they're doing these horrific things to people, killing people or all kinds of things, mutilation or torture, things that kind of like the governments do, like the US government will do to people, Guantanamo or military. But these are people that are outside the military. These are people that aren't part of the government. So they're getting penalized for this. They're not getting medals or not getting protected behind, doors. But these are people that are doing this in public, in society. And there's a real sickness there. There's a sickness if you're doing it at all, no matter who you're doing it for. But it's really antisocial, right? It's really, really poor behavior. And how do we handle that? Well, do we return hate? Do we hate these people? We see in a courtroom, and it's happened before they've even killed the guy. The guy brings a gun into the courtroom or whatever, and he jumps over the bench, and tries to kill the guy that raped his daughter or that killed his child as a revenge thing. Because it's so frustrating, and you see this person, and you're able to look face to face with somebody that did this heinous thing to someone in your own family, and your own child that you miss so much and you treasure so much, and there's so much emotion around that. I had a friend who's an IDF soldier. One of the gang run by Israel, the military gang that's infiltrating and murdering in Palestine. And he was telling me about an event where they had captured a guy who was a Palestinian guy, and they were taking him in. And he said to me, "Can you imagine how I felt being face to face with this guy who had done these things?" And it was really ironic because at the time I was kind of neutral when it came to the things that the Israeli soldiers were doing, but I didn't think it was right. But later on, I thought about it. I didn't say anything at the time. I just was like, "Wow, okay, I don't know what that's like because I haven't done that." But I realized that imagine how that Palestinian guy felt about what these guys were doing to him. So a lot of times, this is why love is such a great equalizer, because we want to point the finger at somebody else. I saw that guy do that thing. A lot of times, especially where the hate will come from, a lot of times it comes from our own self-hate, our own hate of humanity, our own hate of reality, our own frustration because we can't understand why someone would do something like that. Do we return evil for evil in that situation? It's hypocritical, isn't it? If I don't have the compassion and understanding to know why somebody did something, if I walk into a lion's cage and get mauled by the lion, or some kid at the zoo is being too adventurous and he jumps over some barrier and he gets killed or torn up or hurt by a tiger or by some wild animal, they do put the animal to sleep. Is that right? Kill the animal? They do it because the family's so upset, but the animal's just being an animal. How can we have so much compassion for an animal? It's so easy to see, look, that's what tigers do. Do you hate the tiger? What about, who was it? Siegfried and Roy, one of the guys, right, got mauled by one of the tigers that they trained at one point, put him out of business. They probably, killed the animal, but elephants in the circus that go on a rampage because they're just tired of the abuse day in, day out, every day on the road, they finally just flip and they snap and they go on this rampage of killing, of trampling. Can we understand why an animal would do that? If we could understand why an animal might do that, can we understand how a human might do something just because something snaps in their head, either the way they were treated or the way they were born with a screw loose or something wrong, or who knows what the reason might be? Do we want to approach this situation with understanding and compassion, all the while protecting ourselves and each other from being hurt, murdered, mutilated, whatever, killed by this guy? But do we want to return that evil to him? Do we answer things that we interpret as wrong with more wrong? Do two wrongs make a right? It's absolutely ridiculous that some people actually believe in execution. Well, heck, in some countries, they cut your hand off or they stone you to death, or they behead you. Recently was at Saudi Arabia, where some kid was sending a tweet or sending a WhatsApp message on social media, and he was beheaded for that. Wow. So what do we do? How do we react? Bottom line, how do you handle a situation where you feel you're interpreting that someone is evil, someone is bad, someone is wrong, someone's trying to hurt you, they're stabbing you in the back, like I have felt many times. Okay, first I'm going to conclude. I'm going to take a look at, do I need to label it as that? Do I need to say this guy, my brother who's been the best teacher I've ever had, probably not on purpose, but in the grand scheme of things, as a spirit, he's been my greatest teacher because of some of the situations I've been in with him. One of my two brothers, actually both my brothers, in different ways, have really caused me to think and really caused me to understand, really caused me to be compassionate and to stop pointing the finger and not want to be vengeful, not want to return evil for evil, but try to understand this is where this person's coming from, let go of the evil. So the first thing we do when we want to let go of that vengeful that comes from the brainstem, that comes from very primitive part of the brain, a very primitive part of who we are, this fight or flight mechanism. When we observe those impulses, we experience those impulses, we have a chance to say, do I want to react? Do I want to react on impulse? Do I want to evaluate that as being stabbed in the back? Do I even want to define it that way? Well, if you're love-centered, if you're love-foundationed, you're going to say, I'm not even going to try to define that. I'm not going to try to put a label on that as something like backstabbing, or as something like evil, or something like this guy's trying to get me and I'm going to get him back. We don't even go as far as saying this guy's trying to get me, because we don't know what's going on in our situation, in this situation. We don't know exactly what's going on in this person's head, and we don't know why they're being how they're being. Even if we do know why, it's not going to be beneficial to label them as someone that is bad or evil. Well, how do we label it? We label it as a challenge. We label it as an opportunity to love. We label it as a learning that we can have in life, that we can experience in life, where we can say, wow, this crazy thing happened. This extreme thing happened. How do I react in a loving way? Well, we look at the love qualities. We react with understanding and compassion and kindness and respect, forgiveness, nurturing, so that we don't turn it into this polarity, this extreme thing, this I'm good and they're evil, which is what war is based on. This is how we get a soldier to act and shoot a mother and her baby walking out of a grass hut, or burning them alive, or dropping incendiaries, dropping napalm on their heads. These people are just living in a village. They're farmers. They've got nothing to do with any kind of conflict at all. You go to their house, how do you get them to do? You create this polarity. You feed the primitive part of the brain any way that you can, so that it becomes the dominant force in that person's thinking. We don't want to do that for ourselves. If we want to be love foundation, if we want to be love-centered, if we want to be a compassionate person, we don't feed that primitive part. We don't feed the hate. We feed the love. And what is love? It's understanding. Love is compassion. Love is respect. Instead of throwing somebody in a cage and treating them brutally, we find a way to maybe stop them, confine them in some way so that they're not hurting people, but we also allow them to pursue happiness in the way that they can, however that could work. Whether it's a collar that stops you from going out a certain perimeter, or whether it's inside of some kind of a compound where you have a lot of freedom, but you don't have the freedom to hurt and kill or do whatever it is you were doing that was harmful to society. You can still paint pictures, you can still study, you can still dance and sing, and you can do all kinds of things. You can do all kinds of productive things in life that benefit other people, even if you have this part of you that's kind of sick and twisted. So there are a lot of ways of dealing with people that isn't degrading them, it isn't punishing them, it isn't beating them, it isn't hurting them. There are a million things that we can do when we're love-centered, when we're compassion-centered, when we have love as our foundation and as our reference point. And it makes the whole world a better place. And it's a whole different kind of a viewpoint. It's a whole different way of looking at life, a whole different way of behaving. It's a whole new, different approach. And it can give us a new world. How do we react to what we interpret as hate? Again, we don't interpret it at all. But we know that we're love-based. We know that we're love-centered. And we know that our expression needs to be a loving one, a nurturing one, a kind one, a respectful one. Even if it involves preventing someone from hurting others, if that's what they're hell-bent on doing, or if it involves protecting someone who's a victim or potential victim, someone who's vulnerable, a kid walking to school vulnerable to a kidnapper, a pedophile, who knows. We're not hush-hush. We don't cover license plates. We don't cover faces. This guy did this, and he might do it again or whatever, and so be aware. Be careful. Let the children walk to school safely. Okay, so this is about returning love all the time and not labeling something evil, not labeling something hateful, not getting into this primitive brain part that says, I got to get revenge, I got to get them back, I got to teach them a lesson, they got to be punished, they're going to pay for what they did. All this kind of stuff comes from a very primitive, non-thinking, non-compassionate part of our brain. And we can react that way from time to time in certain situations. Let's try not to. Let's try to react with compassion, understanding, kindness, and love. That's what today is about. That's what today's Love Buddy chat is about. Compassion for evil. Does that sound crazy? Even if we define somebody as an evil person to the core, it's compassion. Even we don't even label it. Okay, so that's it. My name is Matthew. This is Love Buddy. The more you love, the more you live. The more we love in our lives, the greater, more fantastic, more enjoyable, more joyous, more happy life we could have. The more fun we're going to have, the more we're going to accomplish, the more we're going to feel great about our lives, the more we love. The more we're in touch with love, the more we're aware of love. And that's what this daily live broadcast, 10 p.m. New York time, is all about. To talk about, share this topic, to discuss these ideas, to consider these ideas about love, and share ideas about love together so we can grow love in the world. That's what this is all about. Hope you enjoyed it. That's it for today. Have a wonderful day. I love you. This is Matthew from Love Buddy. See you tomorrow.